Your soulmate has had enough. They're finally exposing the shocking secret the third party hid. Don't scroll, because your soulmate has reached the point where keeping this secret buried feels more dangerous than finally exposing the truth. My beloved child, this message is for you, and your heart needs this right now because something that was hidden behind confusion, silence, and outside interference is beginning to come into the light. For a long time, you may have felt that something about this connection did not add up. There were moments when your soulmate seemed close to you, emotionally open, ready to move forward, and then suddenly everything shifted. Their energy changed. Their communication became inconsistent. Their confidence in the connection weakened. You may have wondered whether they stopped caring, whether someone else became more important, or whether you had somehow misunderstood everything. But listen to this, because your soulmate is beginning to realize that part of the distance between you was created by information they were given, information that may not have been completely true. Wait, because the third party did not necessarily reveal themselves as an enemy. That is what made this situation so confusing. My beloved child, this person may have presented themselves as someone trying to help, protect, or advise your soulmate. They may have said things like, "I'm only telling you this because I care about you," or, "You should be careful before trusting this connection." And because your soulmate already carried fears from the past, those words landed at exactly the wrong time. Don't scroll, because the shocking part is not simply that someone had an opinion about you. The shocking part is that your soulmate is starting to believe certain details were exaggerated, twisted, or intentionally left incomplete. What they accepted as a warning may have actually been someone else's attempt to influence a connection they did not fully understand. Listen closely, because your soulmate has started connecting the dots. There were things this third party said that did not match what your soulmate had personally experienced with you. Maybe they were told that you were not serious, yet your actions had shown loyalty. Maybe someone suggested you were hiding something, but every time your soulmate looked back at the connection, they remembered moments when you had been unusually honest. Perhaps the third party made your intentions sound selfish, while your soulmate remembered the times you supported them without asking for anything in return. My beloved child, your heart needs this right now because contradictions are becoming too obvious for them to ignore. They are asking themselves, why did I trust someone else's interpretation more than what I experienced with this person directly? Pause here, because that question has created anger, but much of that anger is directed at themselves. Your soulmate is beginning to realize that they should have come to you. They should have asked questions. They should have given you the opportunity to explain anything they did not understand. Instead, fear and outside influence may have pushed them toward silence. My beloved child, they are looking back now and seeing how easily doubt can grow when communication disappears. One small suggestion becomes a question. One question becomes suspicion. Suspicion creates emotional distance. And suddenly two people who once felt deeply connected begin standing on opposite sides of a misunderstanding neither of them fully created. Don't look away, because there may have been one specific lie or hidden detail that changed everything. Your soulmate is slowly discovering that the third party may have known more than they admitted. Maybe this person knew that your intentions were genuine but chose to frame them differently. Maybe they witnessed something that could have cleared your name but stayed silent. Perhaps they repeated something you supposedly said without giving the full context. Listen to this. Your soulmate is not only upset about what they were told. They are upset about what they were not told. Sometimes the most powerful form of manipulation is not inventing an entire story. It is removing one important piece of truth so that everything else looks completely different. Your heart needs this right now, because you may have blamed yourself for the change in your soulmate. You may have wondered whether you became too emotional, too available, or too invested. Maybe you replayed the final conversations before the distance appeared and tried to find where you went wrong. My beloved child, this message is reminding you that you could not respond to information you never knew existed. If another person was influencing the way your soulmate saw the connection, you were fighting a battle you could not even see. That does not mean every problem came from a third party, but it may explain why your soulmate's behavior suddenly seemed disconnected from the reality you thought both of you shared. Stay with this message, because your soulmate's spiritual awakening is beginning to challenge the way they used to make decisions. Maybe they have been seeing 111 during moments when they are questioning old beliefs. Perhaps 222 appears when they are realizing how badly this connection lost its balance. Maybe 444 catches their attention when they are thinking about rebuilding trust, while 555 appears during moments when the truth seems to be changing everything. My beloved child, signs do not replace facts, but sometimes meaningful patterns can encourage reflection. And right now your soulmate is reflecting deeply. They are asking which beliefs came from their own experience and which ones were planted by someone else. Listen carefully, because the third party may have underestimated how strongly your soulmate still felt connected to you. They probably assumed enough time and distance would make the connection disappear. Maybe they believed your soulmate would eventually stop questioning what happened. But don't scroll, because that is not what happened. The farther your soulmate moved from you, the more certain memories began returning. They remembered how you actually treated them. They remembered the things you said when nobody else was listening. They remembered the way you showed up during difficult moments. And suddenly the version of you described by the third party no longer matched the person your soulmate remembered. Wait, because someone may have recently slipped up. My beloved child, perhaps the third party contradicted something they had said before. Maybe your soulmate heard the same story from someone else and noticed an important detail was different. Maybe a message, conversation, or unexpected comment revealed that this person had known the truth longer than they admitted. Your soulmate may have remained quiet at first, but internally everything shifted. They started revisiting old conversations. They started asking themselves what else they had accepted without checking. And once doubt moved away from you and toward the source of the information, the entire story began changing. Don't scroll, because your soulmate is now remembering something about you that makes them deeply uncomfortable with the way they handled this situation. You gave them chances to communicate. Maybe you asked directly what was wrong. Maybe you sensed their energy changing and tried to create a safe space for honesty. Perhaps you even said, "If something is bothering you, just tell me." But they did not. My beloved child, they are realizing that you were standing there ready for a conversation while they were privately responding to information you had never heard. That regret is growing because they now understand how different things could have been if they had simply trusted direct communication over outside assumptions. Listen to this, because the anger they are feeling toward the third party is not only about interference. It is about motive. Your soulmate is starting to ask, why did this person want me to believe that? Maybe jealousy was involved. Maybe the third party feared losing influence over your soulmate. Maybe they had their own emotional attachment. Or maybe they genuinely believed they were protecting your soulmate but allowed their own biases to distort the truth. My beloved child, whatever the motive was, your soulmate is becoming less interested in excuses and more interested in facts. They want to know exactly what was said, why it was said, and what information was deliberately hidden. Your heart needs this right now, because their awakening does not automatically erase the pain you experienced. Even if they discover that someone misled them, your soulmate still made choices based on that information. They still chose silence instead of coming to you. They still allowed fear to influence their behavior. My beloved child, accountability matters. If this connection ever moves toward healing, they will need to say more than, "Someone lied to me." They will need to admit, "I should have trusted you enough to ask." That distinction is important because rebuilding trust requires ownership, not simply finding someone else to blame. Don't look away, because they may be preparing to confront this third party directly. Your soulmate wants answers now. They may be asking questions they avoided before. Why didn't you tell me the full story? How did you know that? Why did you make it sound different? Listen closely, because this confrontation is not necessarily loud or dramatic. The strongest part may be how calm your soulmate has become. They are no longer accepting vague explanations. They want specifics. They want consistency. And every answer that does not line up is making them more determined to uncover what really happened. Pause here, because the biggest shock may be that the third party knew your soulmate had strong feelings for you all along. My beloved child, perhaps that is why they interfered. They could see that this was not an ordinary connection. They noticed your soulmate becoming emotionally invested. They noticed the way your name affected them. And whether through jealousy, fear, control, or misguided protection, they inserted doubt into a place that was already vulnerable. Don't scroll, because your soulmate is realizing that someone may have used their deepest fear against them. They knew your soulmate was afraid of betrayal, and they gave them a reason to suspect it. They knew your soulmate feared being hurt, and they presented distance as protection. Listen carefully, because your soulmate is now seeing the difference between intuition and fear. For a long time, they may have told themselves, something feels wrong. But now they are asking whether that feeling actually came from within or whether it began after someone repeatedly planted suspicion. My beloved child, this is a powerful part of spiritual awakening. Learning to separate your inner knowing from someone else's narrative can change everything. Your soulmate is realizing that genuine intuition often feels clear, while fear tends to become louder, more obsessive, and more confusing. And looking back, much of what happened between you became confusing only after outside voices entered the picture. Stay with me, because they are also realizing that your behavior after the distance did not match what they were warned about. If you were supposedly manipulative, why did you eventually step back instead of forcing them to stay? If you supposedly only wanted attention, why did you respect their silence even though it hurt? If you supposedly had bad intentions, why are so many of their strongest memories of you connected to kindness, patience, and emotional support? My beloved child, these questions are becoming impossible for them to dismiss. The truth is beginning to defend itself through consistency. Don't scroll, because there is one memory that may have completely broken the third-party story apart. Your soulmate remembered something only you and they truly understood. Maybe it was a promise. Maybe a vulnerable conversation. Maybe you did something privately that proved your intentions in a way no outsider could have known. And suddenly they realized that the person advising them never had access to the deepest reality of the connection. Listen to this. That moment may have been when your soulmate thought, I let someone who stood outside this connection tell me what was happening inside it. Your heart needs this right now, because they are beginning to feel the weight of the time that was lost. They think about conversations that never happened, opportunities that passed, and moments when they wanted to reach you but allowed doubt to stop them. My beloved child, regret can become heavy when a person realizes that the obstacle they feared may never have been what they thought it was. But regret alone is not transformation. What matters now is what your soulmate chooses to do with this realization. Listen closely, because the next step they are considering is not only exposing the secret. They want to clear your name. Maybe someone around them formed an unfair opinion of you because of what the third party said. Maybe family or friends heard a version of events that made you look responsible for the distance. Your soulmate may now feel compelled to correct that narrative. Don't scroll. They are beginning to understand that if they allowed misinformation to influence how others saw you, they have a responsibility to tell those people what they now know. Wait, because this is where their feelings become deeply personal again. Beneath the anger toward the third party is grief over what happened between you. Your soulmate realizes that while they were listening to someone else, you may have been slowly losing faith in them. They imagine how painful it must have been to feel their energy change without understanding why. My beloved child, that thought is breaking something open inside them. They want you to know that the distance was not proof that you were unworthy of love. It was proof that they did not know how to protect a meaningful connection from fear and outside influence. Don't look away, because 222 may carry a powerful reminder here. Balance cannot exist when a relationship contains too many outside voices. If two people are trying to understand each other, eventually they must communicate directly. 444 can remind you that trust needs a stable foundation. 555 can symbolize the kind of change required when hidden information comes to light. And 111 can become a reminder that a new beginning is possible only when old assumptions are questioned. My beloved child, if you notice these numbers, use them to return to your own wisdom rather than treating them as guarantees. Listen to this, because your soulmate knows they cannot simply come back and say, it was all the third party's fault. They understand that you deserve more. They may need to tell you exactly what they believed, exactly why they believed it, and exactly when they discovered the truth. My beloved child, they know parts of that confession may be uncomfortable. You may ask why they did not trust you. You may ask why they never came directly to you. You may feel angry that another person had so much influence. And your soulmate is beginning to understand that if they truly want to repair anything, they must allow you to have those feelings. Your heart needs this right now, because forgiveness should never be forced by spiritual language. You are allowed to understand someone's mistake without pretending it did not hurt. You are allowed to believe a connection is meaningful while still expecting accountability. Don't scroll past this part. If your soulmate exposes the truth, watch what happens afterward. Do they change how they communicate? Do they establish healthier boundaries with outside people? Do they stop allowing someone else's opinion to override your direct experience together? Those actions will tell you more than any dramatic revelation. Stay with this message, because your soulmate may already have made one important decision. They are done letting the third party control the narrative. My beloved child, they are beginning to say, enough. Enough rumors. Enough half-truths. Enough allowing someone else to speak for you. Enough making decisions about your connection without including you in the conversation. This shift matters because your soulmate is finally becoming willing to stand behind what they personally know and feel. Don't scroll, because the most shocking detail may still not be fully exposed. There is one thing the third party allegedly knew from the beginning, one fact that could have prevented much of the misunderstanding if it had been revealed at the right time. Your soulmate is now asking why it was hidden. Maybe that person knew that something you said had been taken out of context. Maybe they knew that a situation involving another person was completely innocent. Maybe they had information that proved you were telling the truth. Whatever it was, withholding it changed how your soulmate interpreted everything. Listen carefully, because your soulmate is preparing for a conversation that could shift the entire connection. They want to tell you what they heard. They want to tell you what they believed. They want to tell you when the story began falling apart. And most importantly, they want to hear your side without interruption. My beloved child, that may be the first real sign that the old dynamic is changing. They are no longer preparing to defend themselves. They are preparing to listen. Don't leave this message yet, because the final revelation is where everything becomes even more intense. Your soulmate has discovered that the third party may not have acted alone in keeping this misunderstanding alive. There may have been another conversation, another hidden motive, or another person who knew pieces of the truth and chose silence. My beloved child, your soulmate is beginning to pull on one thread, and more information is starting to unravel than they expected. Your heart needs this right now, because the next thing they uncover could explain why the interference became so strong at the exact moment you and your soulmate were getting closer. Something about your connection made someone nervous. Something about the possibility of you two becoming serious changed the behavior of the people around them. And now your soulmate is determined to find out why. Don't scroll away from what comes next, because the secret they are exposing may not only reveal what the third party hid, it may reveal the real reason someone was so determined to keep your soulmate from discovering how genuine your connection actually was. Don't scroll, because your soulmate has just uncovered the part of this secret that changes the entire meaning of what happened between you. My beloved child, the deeper they look, the more they are realizing that this was never just one misunderstanding, one careless comment, or one moment of jealousy. There were layers. There were conversations they were never meant to question. There were details presented in a way that made you look completely different from the person they had actually experienced. And now your soulmate is standing in that uncomfortable place where the truth is beginning to expose not only the third party, but also the choices they made while believing that person. Listen to this, because your heart needs this right now. They are finally asking themselves why someone was so invested in making them doubt you, and the answer they are beginning to uncover is more personal than they expected. Wait, because the third party may have had something to lose if your connection became stronger. Maybe it was influence. Maybe attention. Maybe emotional control. Maybe they feared that once your soulmate trusted you completely, their own position in your soulmate's life would change. My beloved child, don't scroll, because this is where your soulmate is beginning to understand that not every person who says, "I'm only trying to protect you," is acting from pure motives. Sometimes protection becomes a convenient word for control. Sometimes advice is shaped by jealousy. Sometimes a person can convince themselves that they know what is best while quietly pushing another person toward the outcome they personally want. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize that possibility, and it is forcing them to revisit everything they were told. Listen closely, because one contradiction may have started this entire awakening. Perhaps your soulmate heard the same story from someone else, but one important detail was different. Maybe a date did not line up. Maybe something you supposedly said was repeated in a completely different way. Maybe someone accidentally revealed that the third party had known more than they originally admitted. My beloved child, your soulmate may have gone silent in that moment, but inside, their minds started racing. They began remembering old conversations word for word. They began asking themselves, if this part was not true, what else did I believe without checking? That single question opened the door to everything. Your heart needs this right now, because your soulmate is beginning to see how much their fear made them vulnerable to outside influence. They already cared about you deeply. That meant they also had more to lose, and when people are afraid of losing something meaningful, they can sometimes become easier to manipulate through uncertainty. Someone only had to plant a small seed. Are you sure you can trust them? Did you know they said this? Maybe they are not as serious as you think. Don't scroll, because those questions did not need to prove anything. They only needed to activate fears your soulmate already carried. And instead of bringing those fears to you, your soulmate allowed them to grow in silence. Pause here, because one of the most painful things your soulmate is realizing is that you may have sensed something was wrong before they ever admitted it. Maybe you asked why they were acting differently. Maybe you noticed the sudden emotional distance. Maybe you said, "Did I do something?" My beloved child, imagine what they feel remembering that now. You were trying to understand, and they were carrying a version of events they had never given you the chance to answer. They may have assumed your confusion meant guilt. Now they realize your confusion may simply have been genuine confusion because you had no idea what was being said behind your back. Don't look away, because the secret is becoming even more uncomfortable for the third party. Your soulmate may have discovered that this person knew you had tried to communicate honestly. Maybe they saw a message, heard about a conversation, or knew that you wanted to clear something up, yet they never encouraged your soulmate to speak directly with you. Instead, they may have reinforced the distance. Listen to this. That is what is bothering your soulmate now. If the third party truly wanted what was best, why discourage direct communication? Why make your soulmate more suspicious instead of helping them find clarity? My beloved child, those questions are beginning to dismantle the entire story. Stay with this message, because someone else may now be confirming pieces of what your soulmate suspected. Perhaps another friend finally said, "I never believed that version of the story." Maybe someone admitted they had always thought the third party seemed unusually involved. Maybe a person who stayed quiet before is now revealing that they witnessed something your soulmate should have known. Don't scroll, because once multiple pieces begin lining up, denial becomes difficult. Your soulmate is no longer dealing with one emotional suspicion. They are looking at a pattern. Listen carefully, because this pattern may reveal that the third party was watching your connection more closely than your soulmate realized. They noticed when you became closer. They noticed when your soulmate started talking about you differently. They noticed when your soulmate became happier, softer, or more emotionally open. My beloved child, perhaps that change threatened something inside them. Maybe they feared losing access to your soulmate's attention. Maybe they feared becoming less important. Maybe they simply could not handle watching a connection develop that they could not control. Whatever the reason, your soulmate is starting to believe that the interference intensified at the exact moment your bond began feeling more serious. Your heart needs this right now, because you may have interpreted that shift as your soulmate changing their mind about you. But what if their feelings did not disappear? What if fear and confusion simply became louder? My beloved child, this does not mean you should erase the pain their behavior caused. Their choices still mattered. But understanding the hidden influence may help you stop carrying the belief that you suddenly became unlovable. Don't scroll, because your soulmate is beginning to realize that too. They are starting to see that the story they believed about you did not match the person you consistently showed yourself to be. Wait, because they may now be looking at old messages differently. Maybe something you wrote that once seemed suspicious because of what they had been told now appears completely innocent in context. Maybe a delayed reply was presented as proof you did not care, but now they remember what was actually happening in your life. Maybe a conversation was twisted to make you look dishonest when the full exchange told a different story. My beloved child, this is why context matters. A person can take one sentence, one moment, one silence, and turn it into an entirely different narrative when the listener is already afraid. Listen closely, because your soulmate is angry now, but not in the way the third party may expect. They are not only angry at being misled. They are angry because they know they participated in the damage by refusing to ask you directly. They are realizing that trust means giving someone the opportunity to speak for themselves. Don't scroll, because that may be the hardest part of their awakening. Blaming the third party completely would be easy. Admitting, "I should have known better than to make decisions about you without hearing you," requires humility. And your soulmate is beginning to reach that humility. Your heart needs this right now, because if they come back with this truth, you are allowed to ask difficult questions. Why didn't you ask me? Why did you believe them? Why did you let another person influence something that belonged between us? My beloved child, you do not have to soften every question to protect their feelings. If healing is real, it has to survive honesty. A genuine apology will not demand that you immediately understand everything. It will make room for your experience too. Don't scroll, because something about 222 may be showing up around this lesson for a reason that feels symbolic. Balance. Two people. Direct communication. A relationship cannot remain balanced when a third voice has more power than the two people actually involved. If 444 appears, let it remind you that trust needs structure. If 555 catches your eye, think about the changes required if this connection is ever going to become healthier. And if 111 shows up, perhaps it is simply asking you to notice what new beliefs you are ready to choose now that old information is being questioned. Stay with this message, because your soulmate is beginning to expose not only what was said, but when it was said. Timing matters. Maybe the third party chose moments when your soulmate was already emotionally vulnerable. Maybe they brought you up right after an argument. Maybe they shared information when your soulmate was afraid you were becoming distant. Don't look away, because your soulmate is seeing how carefully those moments may have been used. A statement that would have sounded ridiculous on a peaceful day can feel believable when someone is already scared. Listen to this, because the third party may have also hidden positive things about you. Perhaps they knew you had defended your soulmate when others criticized them. Maybe they knew you had asked about their well-being. Maybe they knew you were still emotionally invested even while respecting their space. My beloved child, withholding those details mattered. If your soulmate had known them, they might have questioned the negative narrative much sooner. And now the idea that someone selectively shared only what supported one version of you is making them feel betrayed. Wait, because there may be one message, one screenshot, one conversation, or one witness that finally caused the entire story to collapse. My beloved child, your soulmate may have encountered evidence they were never supposed to see. Not something mystical, but something simple and undeniable. A timeline. A statement. A contradiction. Something that made them stop and think, this is not what I was told. Don't scroll, because once that happened, everything that followed became impossible to dismiss. They began going backward through every decision they made based on that false assumption. Your heart needs this right now, because regret is starting to hit them in waves. They are remembering times they ignored you because they thought they were protecting themselves. They are remembering when you reached out and they answered coldly. They are remembering the exact moments when your confusion probably turned into pain. My beloved child, now they know why your behavior never made sense inside the story they were told, because that story may never have been accurate to begin with. Listen closely, because your soulmate may be thinking about the first conversation they want to have with you after exposing everything. They do not want to start by saying, "Someone lied." They know that could sound like another excuse. They may want to begin with, "I owe you an apology because I listened to someone else instead of coming to you." Don't scroll, because that difference matters. One statement shifts blame. The other accepts responsibility. If they truly have grown through this revelation, they will understand that the third party's behavior does not erase their own choices. My beloved child, there is another reason they want to expose the secret publicly or at least correct the people who heard it. They are realizing that your reputation may have been affected. Maybe people around them formed opinions about you without ever speaking to you. Maybe the third party's version became accepted as fact. Your soulmate now feels that if they allowed that narrative to spread without defending you, they have a responsibility to correct it. Your heart needs this right now because real accountability sometimes means repairing damage outside the relationship too. Don't look away, because the third party may not be taking this exposure calmly. Once questioned, they may become defensive. They may say your soulmate is misunderstanding them. They may claim they were only trying to help. Maybe they will change parts of the story. Maybe they will accuse your soulmate of choosing you over them. Listen carefully. Your soulmate is learning to stop reacting to emotional pressure and start looking at consistency. Which version stays the same? Which facts can be verified? Which behavior actually matches reality? That is where the truth begins separating itself from manipulation. Stay with me, because your soulmate is also recognizing a deeper lesson about boundaries. If this connection ever moves forward, certain people may no longer be allowed to have the same influence. My beloved child, this does not mean cutting everyone off because they disagree. Healthy people can offer honest concerns. But there is a difference between advice and interference. There is a difference between warning someone once and repeatedly shaping how they see a relationship. Your soulmate is learning that private connections need protected space to grow. Listen to this, because they may now understand something you tried to tell them long ago. Perhaps you once said, "Talk to me, not about me." Maybe you asked them to come directly to you if they ever heard something. At the time, those words seemed simple. Now they sound prophetic to them. Don't scroll, because your soulmate may be replaying that sentence and realizing you had already given them the solution. Direct communication could have prevented so much of this pain. Your heart needs this right now, because it is possible to forgive yourself for not knowing what was happening behind the scenes. You did not have access to those conversations. You could not defend yourself against information that was never brought to you. My beloved child, stop trying to find the perfect thing you could have done differently to control someone else's hidden choices. The lesson for you may be to trust that your truth does not become false simply because someone misunderstood it. Don't scroll, because the next revelation may be the one that angers your soulmate most. They are beginning to believe the third party knew there was a real chance you and your soulmate would reconcile, and deliberately withheld one final piece of information that could have brought you back into communication sooner. Maybe you had tried to reach out. Maybe you had asked about them. Maybe you had expressed that you still cared. And perhaps your soulmate never knew. Listen closely, because if that is true, this secret becomes more than a misunderstanding. It becomes a lost opportunity. My beloved child, your soulmate is thinking about how different the last weeks or months might have looked if they had known you were still open to a conversation. They are imagining all the time that passed while both of you may have been carrying feelings separately. That realization is making them more determined than ever to stop allowing another person to control what happens next. Wait, because there is one thing your soulmate is now absolutely sure about: if they speak to you again, they want the conversation to stay between you two. No outside interpretations. No running to someone else after every emotional moment. No letting another person decide what your words mean. Don't scroll, because that may be one of the strongest signs of growth in this entire situation. They are finally understanding that trust has to be built through direct experience. Your heart needs this right now, because you still get to decide whether that growth is enough. Even if every hidden detail is exposed, you do not have to immediately return to the connection. My beloved child, you can listen and still take your time. You can understand and still require consistency. You can forgive and still rebuild slowly. The truth is not a command. It is information that allows you to make a more conscious choice. Listen carefully, because your soulmate may soon admit something that surprises you even more than the third-party secret. They may tell you that there were moments when their own intuition kept telling them that the story about you did not feel right. They felt the contradiction. They remembered your character. Something inside them kept saying, "Ask them directly." But fear won. Don't look away, because this is why they are so frustrated with themselves now. They realized that part of them knew they needed more information, and they ignored that voice. Stay with this message, because that lesson is changing how they see spiritual signs too. Maybe they kept seeing 222 when they were caught between outside opinions and what they personally felt. Maybe 444 appeared when they were craving stability. Maybe 555 showed up when the truth began shifting everything. My beloved child, they may now understand these signs less as predictions and more as reminders to slow down, reflect, and make decisions from clarity instead of fear. Don't scroll, because the exposure is not over yet. Your soulmate believes there is still one person who knows exactly why the third party became so invested in keeping you apart. Someone who witnessed the beginning of the interference. Someone who may know what was said privately before your soulmate ever heard the first rumor. And this person may finally be ready to speak. Listen to this final part carefully, because what comes next could reveal the true motive behind everything. My beloved child, your soulmate is starting to suspect that the third party did not interfere simply because they disliked you. They may have been protecting a secret of their own. Something that would have been exposed if your soulmate became closer to you and started asking the right questions. That is why the manipulation became stronger when your connection deepened. That is why certain truths were hidden. And that is why your soulmate has finally had enough. They are no longer satisfied with knowing that something was wrong. They want to know why it happened, who else knew, and what the third party was so afraid you would eventually reveal. The next truth may not only clear your name, it may completely expose the real reason someone worked so hard to keep you and your soulmate apart.